Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Squadron Leader Nelson Miris. We warmly welcome the family of Lance Corporal Francis Albert Percy Shaw, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors to the memorial, and Australian Army cadets representing 224 Army Cadet Unit from Canberra and 241 Army Cadet, North Canberra. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. If you're able, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Francis Albert Percy Shaw. Frank Shaw was born in Irvingdale, Queensland on the 18th of October, 1895. He was one of 10 children born to railway ganger Thomas Shaw and Mary Ann Burke. The children grew up in the Darling Downs town of Bell and attended Bell State School. At the outbreak of the First World War, Frank was working as a contractor's assistant. On the 28th of September 1915, 19-year-old Frank Shaw enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force with his younger brother, Darcy. The brothers were given the rank of private, allotted reinforcements of the 15th Australian Infantry Battalion, and went into camp at Toowoomba. Their older brother, George, had already enlisted and was serving with the 9th Battalion. After basic training, Frank and Darcy embarked at Brisbane for overseas service on the troop ship Commonwealth. While they were at sea, their older brother George was killed in action near Armentières. Arriving in Alexandria in early May of 1916, younger brother Darcy was admitted to hospital with mumps after 2 weeks in Egypt. He was taken to hospital at Heliopolis before returning to his unit a fortnight later. As Darcy rejoined the draft, Frank contracted mumps and was also admitted to hospital. It would be some months before the brothers met again. Frank spent another 2 months training in the deserts of Egypt. In the first week of August, he sailed for England, transiting there for a month of training on Salisbury Plain. He was given a week's leave in England and returned from leave 2 days late and was docked 10 days' pay. Finally, the draft sailed for France. After 2 weeks in the nursery sector, a relatively quiet part of the Western Front where fresh troops could be schooled in the art of trench warfare, Frank joined the 15th Battalion at Zilla Baker in mid-October of 1916. His introduction to the front was calm, with the 15th Battalion in training for 2 weeks before moving south by train to Pont-Remy. Frank became sick with influenza and was taken to hospital, rejoining his battalion in early December. The battalion began a period of rest and refurbishment and spent December assisting the 1st Anzac Light Railway Operating Company, moving materials, placing duckboards over muddy ground and reinforcing trenches. Heavy snow fell in January as the men continued a regime of training and working, entering the front line at the end of the month. Frank was reunited with younger brother Darcy, who he had not seen since their time together in Egypt. Darcy rejoined the 15th Battalion after a long stay in a British hospital, having received a gunshot wound to the wrist some months before. The brothers would not serve together for long. Darcy was killed in action a few days after returning to the front. Rejoining his battalion after a bout of influenza, Frank went into action with his battalion at Messines in June before moving south to Ploegstedt. In August, he was promoted to Lance Corporal and by October was back in action at Zonnebaker before appalling mud forced the closure of the Ypres front. When the German spring offensive, Operation Michael, began on the 21st of March, the main thrust of the offensive was along the Somme Valley. The 4th Division of the AIF, which included the 15th Battalion, was rushed south to take up a line defending Amiens. The 15th immediately took heavy artillery and machine gun fire. At 5 a.m. on the 5th of April of 1918, the enemy put down a heavy barrage on the front and support lines, using high explosive, gas shells, shrapnel, trench mortars, and machine guns. A party of 20 Germans raided under cover of a machine gun barrage. It was repelled, but 2 men were killed. One of those was Lance Corporal Frank Shaw. He was 22 years old. Frank's remains were not located, nor a grave ever found. Today, he is commemorated on the Australian National Memorial at Villers-Bretonneux. His name is listed among 10,000 Australians who died in France during the First World War and have no known grave. Frank was the third of the three Shaw brothers to be killed during their service. George in 1916, Darcy in 1917, and Frank in 1918. Frank Shaw's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Corporal Francis Albert Percy Shaw, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.